Welcome to Conversations. Welcome to Conversations, and we're having tonight two guests, Reverend Willie Dwayne Francois III and Nkosi Dubois Anderson, and they're both involved with a movement that's here, and now we see in the background two gentlemen that are well known to the people in New York City. Over my right shoulder is Cornel West, who one of our guests is very closely associated with at the Union Theological Seminary, and over my left shoulder is Carl Dix, a person who was involved at the Baptist Church where Willie, our guest, has involved back in a couple of weeks ago in a major thing. In fact, it was August 27, a major event about taking up the question of injustice that involves itself in terms of stop the injustices involved across the country with alarming regularity. That takes the name Rise Up October, I think is what they call it, and also Stop Mass Incarceration, which I think you're both involved with. And it's something that ought to be discussed. We're going to be talking about that. And gentlemen, welcome so very, very much to Conversation.
Thank you for having us.
I was there. I was really impressed. It was a heck of a night. There was a lot of things. People came in from all over the country who had been attacked by people, often in family members who had to suffer death and so forth. And that it was a major night. We want to talk about that, and we're going to show a clip of some of that events that evening and so forth. But I wonder if each you in turn, maybe Willie, you could kick it off in a sense, just very briefly share your background, born and raised a little bit, and what you're involved, and then we'll get into a discussion about that, the issues that are involved in all of that appeared at the Corinthian church. You're there now, but do that, and then in turn, Nkosi, you could share your background if you would, please, for the audience.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Channer. Yeah, my name is Willie Francois, and I am a native of Galveston, Texas, about 45 miles from Houston, Texas. I was there reared by close-knit family with my mother and my sister and my grandparents and my aunt. They really had a strong hand in my formation as a human being and definitely as an adult. I left Galveston, Lamarck, Texas, to go to college. Where I went to Morehouse College, which is also the alma mater of Martin Luther King Jr.
Absolutely.
And there, my social consciousness and my social conscience was really awakened in some very profound ways under the leadership of Dr. Lawrence Edward Carter, the dean of the chapel there. And so it was at Morehouse that really became the womb for how I started viewing the world and my revolutionary Christian practices.
Had you picked it up at the family table before you went to Morehouse, or did you pick it up there? And what was the family setting? Was it intellectually curious and encouraging and so forth, and warm and welcoming, or what?
Yeah. So my home was really intellectually exploratory.
Okay, that's good.
My mother gave me space, my sister and I, space to really think about a range of issues, to think about the world. My mother and grandmother were deep readers, and I remember some of my fondest memories are Saturday mornings, just watching my grandmother read, read most of the day, before breakfast, after breakfast, and so those things really impressed me richly, probably in ways I didn't realize until I hit adulthood.
Were you enthusiastic as a young student, say in grade school or elementary school before Morehouse, or did you ever play hooky?
No. From what they tell me, I was a pretty good student.
Okay.
From what they tell me, I don't remember the days too well. I was a pretty good student. I do remember, this may be interesting to you, Brother Nkosi. I do remember in third grade, one of my teachers, Mrs. Cundiff, she used to allow me to head my papers, Professor Willie Francois. So those were very formative moments for me.
Now go get them. Yeah, right. How about you, Nkosi?
Well, let me first say that it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure's all mine, sir.
It's an honor. You've been doing this since what, 1973?
Since
early
the third
70s?
century of the first century. No, long time. Since there was television for the people,
Well, I just want to acknowledge and
I was an
salute you,
academic,
sir.
a long time.
It's a good pleasure to be here, as well as with my dear brother.
I understand you're associated with Cornell at Union.
Yes.
Cornell's a giant of an intellect.
Oh,
major guy.
He is. It's only matched by his kind heart.
Yeah,
To be
right,
honest with you,
absolutely.
commitment
I
to
couldn't
justice.
agree more.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I was born in New Orleans. Left very quickly, lived in Kansas for about 3 years, but since the age of 4 and on, I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay.
In Essex County, so around the South Orange, Newark area.
What was the family setting like?
Yes. So my mother is an educator.
Okay.
My father was a nephrologist.
What?
Is a nephrologist, a kidney specialist.
Oh, a doctor,
Kidney
a medical
specialist,
doctor.
a
Yeah, I
doctor,
see.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So he has worked at Harlem Hospital right here in the city.
Okay.
So
right.
he would make that commute and still makes that commute to this day.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. So
that same Harlem Hospital that Malcolm marched up to. So, do you remember Malcolm marched up to the Harlem Hospital? They were all
right.
Major event.
Was it Harlem Hospital? Okay.
I think it was. Yeah, Harlem Hospital. They marched with great discipline and everything.
That's right.
Major figure, Malcolm.
That's right. Oh, he was.
Yeah. Anyway,
Exactly. So, grew up in the church. My mother's side of the family is Baptist, traditional Black Baptist.
Yeah.
We grew up in her hometown, so I grew up in that church. My father's side, however, is African Methodist Episcopal Zion.
Wow.
And I come from a long line of preachers and bishops in that tradition.
Okay.
So my grandfather was a bishop. My great-grandfather was a bishop. My uncle is a pastor.
Your great-grandfather.
My great-grandfather,
that's going way back
Felix
in the 19th
Anderson.
century. Yeah.
Felix Anderson. So I come out of the church.
Yeah.
I have that grounding.
Did you have that at home too, Willie? The church?
Oh, yes. Every Sunday in church or with my grandparents. My grandfather was a deacon, chairman of the trustee board at First Union Baptist Church there in Galveston, and my grandmother was the president of the usher board there. So very deep ties to Black faith community.
So you both had that in your early upbringing, the church and concern for that. That's good. Ethics and so forth. Yeah, coming out of there. Yeah. How were you in school? Did you in grade school?
Right.
Did you like school?
I loved school.
You did.
I remember
you
when
too?
I was
I loved it.
That's right. That's right.
Good for you guys.
I used to play college when I was a little kid.
I used
to looking ahead.
In addition to playing church,
I
I used to also play school with my sister, and of course I was the principal, and my sister was the teacher.
Right. No, that's good. It sounds like a good family setting and all that and everything like that.
Oh, yes.
Well, anyway, so you're both involved in that, and I understand you're working toward a doctorate, I guess now, right?
I am.
You've done your master's, have you? And
I am. I've so I did my undergraduate right here in the city at Columbia. I studied political science.
Oh, you did?
I did. Then I did another degree at Columbia, master's in African American Studies.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So I was able to study under people like Manning Marable, Robin D.G. Kelly, Sudhir Venkatesh, a number of great scholars there. And then I came to Union Theological Seminary in 2008.
Relatively recent.
Right. So I did my Master of Divinity there and have just stayed on for my Ph.D.
What kind of thing? I'm just curious. When you do a Master's of Divinity, I did it in social sciences and stuff. My work and everything. What's you got to buy? Is that a piece of curriculum, the Bible, or I'm asking as a person, or what are the major works? Who are the major scholars that one would go to seriously, in terms of we mentioned Tillich and some other people that are major scholars of that you would, as they say, cotton on to or take lesson from, or I just don't know who the big names are, or the names that are really major in terms of the evolution of the academically seen members of the cloth.
Yeah.
Who are some of the major figures that one repairs to?
Right. Well, before I answer that,
Yeah,
just
please.
some
It may be an
specifics
unfair question.
about the Master of Divinity degree. So I think it's a very fascinating and in many ways a unique degree.
Okay, thanks.
Because you have your academic study,
Yeah,
but then you also receive practical skills.
yeah.
It's a professional degree.
Okay.
So it's people can take that and go on to professional careers with it. It's also a degree, and it's also a mode of learning that requires students not just to perform as academic traditional students,
Right.
doing the paper,
Yeah,
taking the test,
yeah,
but it involves a degree of self-reflection and engagement in larger kind of existential issues about one's own life, others, community, ultimate things, and so on and so forth. So it's a very fascinating degree. It's a lot of work. It's about typically 3 years, but I found it very rewarding. I don't know about your experience.
My experience with the MDiv was quite similar. There's definitely a personal formation connected to that 3-year process, particularly community building, which was really rich in our experience. But I mean, it is an academic journey where I was really able to wrestle with some of my theological curiosities and my intellectual curiosities in ways that I did not feel safe asking in sort of confessional faith spaces, church spaces.
Okay.
But I think I've always looked at the seminary as that sort of third way for higher education, that third way for human development in some ways, because it's not the church, of course, and it's not quite the university, but it is this third way of engaging head and heart in some powerful ways.
Well, historically, I mean, that's where our higher learning, if we go back a couple thousand years and so forth, the higher learning was usually having to do with people studying of the cloth.
Certainly.
I mean, you understand, there's a rich tradition.
Churches have given birth to some of our most prestigious institutions of higher learning.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Harvard being one of them, right? Although right now we typically refer to it as godless Harvard, but it
Godless
was
Harvard.
godless Harvard. Godless.
What's the river? Charles?
On the Charles, right on the Charles. godless Harvard on the Charles.
Sounds like a
but it was
novel. Yeah.
Like many of the initial places of learning, to educate ministers, to prepare ministers and prepare school teachers.
And teachers, right.
And teachers,
Well, very good. Now, how you're involved with the Corinthian Church? I was there. I came up at 160. I love 116th Street.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a wonderful place. I mean, I really liked it. And that event that night was really something. Maybe you could share a little bit of that. We're going to show a clip.
Okay.
We got about an 11-minute clip that's going to summarize what happened that night. And it's all directed toward looking at Black Lives Matter in general, and the upset, justifiable upset, with the fact that there's so much violence directed, as it has been inordinately over history, toward people of color.
Yeah.
And it's getting to be ridiculous, and something's got to happen to take account of that. And so you're coming up with this event, Rise Up October, and also I think you're particularly directly involved in Stop Mass Incarceration. Inordinate number of people of color that are in our prisons and so on. There's injustice that continues out of the historical pattern. But share a little bit that night, because I tell you, I thought it was a major event, and you both were involved in that, and it was really impressive to me. I was very moved by the whole thing. So, but share that night. It was just a couple of weeks ago, right?
Right. So it was August 27th. So
that's it.
The Stop Mass Incarceration Network is an initiative that was started by Cornel West and Carl Dix.
Yeah, right.
And the event on the 27th of August was to drum up support and energy towards what we're calling Rise Up October.
Right.
Now, Rise Up October is set to take place over October 22nd, October 23rd, and October 24th.
Culminating 24th?
Culminating in the 24th.
Yeah.
So the idea,
like a million-man march?
Well, similar. I mean, the idea and the thinking was there's a need, given what you were saying earlier about the conditions, about the reality today in terms of police brutality against people of color and so forth.
Yeah, it just continues.
Right.
Whatever happened to the 40 acres or the mule or whatever is metaphorically meant in terms of that, it's ridiculous. The historical pattern that we come out of, that we put up with, it's really ridiculous. Something's got to happen.
Exactly.
It seems to me it has for a long time now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the idea is to mobilize a national kind of series and days of action to draw attention to this issue. So
yeah, good for you.
Right.
All. Yeah.
And I can go into specifics about that as we continue the conversation, but going back to the event at First Corinthian Baptist Church,
yes,
that was a big kickoff event.
It was major.
And it was great. I mean,
place was jammed.
It was.
Yeah. And the vibe was really strong, wasn't it?
It was. And I think that it reflected the network component of the Stop Mass Incarceration Network. Here you have different people coming from a variety of different political orientations, religious backgrounds, socioeconomic class, race, all these kind of different perspectives and backgrounds that folks are coming from, but are coming around this idea that, hey, these injustices have to stop.
Right.
And so that event was a production that was put on by the Stop Mass Incarceration Network and First Corinthian Baptist Church. It really was a joint collaboration to get that event
they had people
going and make it as successful.
And they had
as
people
it was.
coming in from other parts of the country.
Exactly.
It's just New York.
Exactly.
Just New York. It's going to be held here in New York and everything, but it's from all over the country.
Right.
Well, you got the Ferguson and the whole rest of it. It's just it's coming to a certain crescendo.
Exactly.
And I think, to speak of the power of the network, and you mentioned how many people came from other parts of the nation, which sort of signals that this is a moral crisis for the nation. Mass incarceration is a moral crisis for the nation. It's really a type of moral cancer that we keep trying to band-aid, but it's really it's racism. It's systemic racism.
Yeah, call it what it is.
That has now morphed into mass incarceration born out of a forged and fictitious war on drugs, which is more of a war on people of color and poor people. And I think what that night really represented for me was how broad the network has to be to sort of dismantle and to really tame, not to tame, but to really beat back this beast that is really devouring people of color and poor people in this country. And look at the two persons who are really the faces of it. You have Dr. Cornel West, who's I think he self-identifies as a black, freedom-loving Jesus follower.
He's a major intellectual.
Major intellectual. One of the best we've seen in some times. And you have Carl Dix, who is a revolutionary communist who loves people. And so to see the diversity at the top, it only makes sense.
Yeah, he's got that revolutionary bookstore. They used to be down to 23rd Street somewhere down here. They're going to be able to open that pretty soon up Harlem.
Opening up in Harlem, yes.
Yes, that's
okay. That
leadership
was
of
good.
Andy Z and others, yes.
Yeah,
so.
Right. Well, it's it is, but it's been so long standing. I mean, the country was conceived in evil, or it was it was conceived in slavery. Having slavery as a model for our founding fathers and all the rest of it that we celebrate, it was conceived in evil.
Yeah.
Slavery is an evil institution, and we were conceived in that, and we still haven't gotten over the effects of that evil that we put up with for so long and suffered so hard to try and get rid of. I mean, evil dies hard very often.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's still there.
Yeah. I think
in the human consciousness and heart, and in our institutional, sociological, and political organization.
I often like to talk about America's founding because they were at least born. The country was at least born with two birth defects: genocide of indigenous peoples.
Thank you, absolutely.
And the trafficking in and the seasoning of African bodies. And that's really what our country was born in. As they were going to craft documents in freedom, they had to pass bodies in chains, and that's a type of moral blind spot that we as a nation and that as a nation has not overcome.
I was thinking about that the other day, and somebody said, I was referring to something in another context, but the soldiers in the First World War, in the First World War, they went and somebody said the only thing that Mr. Pershing brought to Europe, talking about Europe now, in terms of race, and he said the only thing they brought was, Jim Crow. We had Jim Crow as a follow-up to what happened, strange fruit and all that kind of stuff going on, accepted in the South. And it's interesting to me that it seems to me that Europe, France, Germany, that they didn't have plantation slavery. Why is it? What was there about the Americas that made slavery, as it became institutionalized, occur in the Americas? It didn't apply, seemingly, in the continent of Europe. Why is it the slavery did not appear as it did in the Americas in Europe? They would go, people would go, jazz guys would go there because it was more and less racist Europe at the time of the 20s and 30s. But it was the most evil in the Americas, if you understand what I'm saying. Have we ever given thought to that? Was it having to do with the economics of plantation or what? Or the implication of it?
Well, here's how I'll answer. We have to remember there was indentured servitude in Europe.
Certainly.
So there have always been class distinctions.
Yeah. There's been serfs.
Right. And we also have to acknowledge.
But this was racial, particularly.
But we
with
also
massive
have to,
numbers.
Exactly. We also have to acknowledge Europe's different colonial adventures. And colonized nations across the world. But in terms of the Americas, right. So, but in terms of the Americas, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. The economic opportunity that this new land provided, the natural resources to be extracted, the economic opportunity. And so this nation developed under a system in which you had a labor force, you had a labor power, you had labor resources,
empty land,
that you did not have empty land, that you did not have to pay. And so that allowed the American empire to take off. Now, what I find interesting, and I look to W.E.B. Du Bois for this knowledge. He writes about this in his 1903 text, The Souls of Black Folk, in the chapter of the Sons of Master and Man. What is interesting is that when emancipation came, it was quickly realized that there was no way to incorporate now all of a sudden all these free Negroes into the economy. So what do? Here up to this point, we've exploited their labor. We haven't had to pay them a dime. Now all of a sudden, what do we do? And the decision was to turn to the criminal justice system, to the courts, to the police, to the policing, as a way to, in essence, re-enslave these people. And so the courts, policing, and so forth were used as a mechanism to continue this social control. You were guilty just by your race.
Fugitive Slave Act.
Exactly.
All that
these
kind
things.
of stuff. Jim Crow.
Right, exactly. And so when we look at this kind of history, we have 1619 to 1865, slavery. Then what were the next 100 years? Jim Crow. Segregation. All right. Then we have the Voting Rights Act in 1965.
Well, that was a step forward trying to be.
Exactly.
There was a kind of magic moment trying there, don't you think?
Exactly.
Well,
but
Ramsey Clark.
Right, exactly.
Ramsey Clark was the Secretary General. No, the Attorney General. Voting Rights Act there was another
Civil Rights Act.
Civil Rights Act. Those are major things that were trying to be done.
They were.
But it was done very haltingly, and the job was so huge, it was so monumental, and we still haven't gotten over the burdens to having real justice rained down.
But here's the point I want to make. So in 1965, we had some major victories for racial justice in this country. But then came the conservative backlash. So then we get into what your point earlier about this war on drugs. We have certain mechanisms and certain things put in place to now continue to keep Black, Latino, and poor folk in control. And so we see the rise of this criminal justice mass incarceration system. And Michelle Alexander, in her book New Jim Crow, talks about this. Our current moment of mass incarceration is just simply the most recent form of racial caste that has existed in this country. Slavery Jim Crow, and now mass incarceration. And so in much the same way that it took movements from every, mass movements involving every sector of society to defeat slavery, abolition, to defeat Jim Crow, civil rights movement. Now we're calling for a similar kind of mass movement, drawing on people from all sectors of society to come together to push back against this problem of mass incarceration that we're facing today.
Mass incarceration, you're particularly following that. Yeah, right.
That's
yes,
right.
sir.
That's
And
right.
I want back to the question that you asked. We have to also keep in mind that because America was so underdeveloped in the ways that Europe was in some ways.
Europe had feudalism going back a few thousand years.
You have to think of the agrarian opportunities that America offered. When you think about the crops that started fueling the global economy, cotton, sugar,
that's right,
tobacco, corn. When you think about these crops,
ready-made for plantation.
they're here, right? They're in the Americas. And so it's the agrarian nature of America that is uniquely different from how Europe was at the time, that created a need, a false need for slavery. And they were able to do it with free labor, right? In ways that maybe were not capitalized in the same in Europe. But what we can't let Europe.
It applied in other parts of the Americas, in Brazil.
Of course, I'm speaking of the Americas.
It was an opportunity there for a new thing to develop.
Right.
Whereas the older patterns were in place that held onto the historical tradition, which didn't have a place for slavery.
And we
slavery, out and out slavery, they needed for plantation.
And we can even think deeply about Haiti. Haiti is another example
First
of
country ever to be democratic.
The only country to be born out of a slave rebellion.
Right.
And we know that the unique place that the bastardized place that Haiti has in the Western world, because it is such an anomaly to white power structures.
Absolutely.
But there's something about the Americas that had greater.
Do you think there's still that lurking thing in the minds of the people? There was I did a program a little while ago with a guy who was talking about the Second World War, and the thing they were really worried about, they came to the end. It looked like they were going to be defeated after the Ardennes and all that and everything, and there were still Germans who thought that they were going to join. The Americans would join with the Germans against the real enemy, and that was seen by them as the Bolsheviks or the communists. That in general, the world is set up, and you got some people running, and then you got running dogs or people who are getting a little bit up on that. And what they're really worried about is the mass of the human society rising up against the long-suffering masses of the people who, throughout practically all of history, have been wallowing around in the mud while a few people had all the gold up in the castle on the hill. And that's what people are really worried about. The real justice for all would be something that would become a time when it's actually able to be realized. We couldn't do it in a certain historical sense, but now we can. And now they're really worried that it's going to be tested in a way that's going to bring justice roiling down for everybody in a way that's never been able to be done historically, or something that they're worried about the masses of the world rising up and just throwing off the yoke of the system that has reigned for a few thousand years. If you understand, they're really worried about a mass uprising of the masses of the people of the world across the world. I don't know. It's this thing I just rattled off the top of my head now.
Well,
But
I mean,
really
it sounds
worried
like
about
that fear that's always been had by the upper class of the proletariat revolution is that the unwashed masses will wake up to what's happening to them, and I
heard you say in Haiti a revolution.
A revolution.
A revolution.
A revolution. Yeah.
And Carl Dick's got a thing called the Revolutionary Party.
And a revolution.
The rulers of the world, with their systems and their things that have not seemed to have been able to address the justice that is now capable of being raining down upon the planet in a new kind of liberating capability to provide for everyone and even meet the ecological challenges that are coming in a way that just simply hasn't been available to us historically. That time is coming, and people are very nervous about that, as they always have been when the things were much more constrained by actual scarcity in terms of the ability to provide for one to win, somebody else has to lose. The whole psychology of scarcity, there's not enough, For me to win, you have to lose, and all of that may be coming to an end at the level of capability that mankind has to meet the needs of all human beings and the ecology in a way that historically they haven't. We're coming to a historical moment of qualitative transformation, maybe even evolutionarily or something. I don't know, just rambling.
Right, but you know, I mean, we have to make a choice in terms of our morality.
Okay.
Is our morality going to be based on things such as sustainability, such as community, such as justice? Or is our morality going to be dominated by a market sensibility?
Not only market, but just the realpolitik has helped.
Right,
If you study political science,
of course.
I mean, you can be saying, you know, there's all kinds of things. Think about it in a way. If you think about the world, I'm just musing, okay? And if you think about it, there's a lot of things that are abroad in the human society, and there's things like they're called love, and empathy and concern and all of this. But the main thing that seems to be cohering and indicating human society that comes above everything else is money. Seems to me. Does it seem that way to you? That seems to trump everything in terms of the politics and the thing that takes top consideration in the name of reality.
Right. Well, again,
Reality. And the reality is based upon, we've been here a couple 100,000 years as species. There's never been, in terms of the future, that we are born into perhaps realizing a moment of transition, a real transition. The reality is that in 1900, you could not say part of a condition of being a have, or somebody who's materially in good shape, would be, in 1900, you could not say, well, one of the things that would be is you can get on an airplane in New York and go in 3 hours to Los Angeles. We didn't have the capability. We didn't have the capability. We have a capability of providing a way that provides for haveness, for want of a better term, that we simply haven't had. We have been constrained by the material reality that there was not enough. In an ontologic sense, if you can understand. But we may be getting to the point where we're coming to a point where we can't ride that horse anymore. We can't keep saying we haven't got enough, because we're getting to a point where the technological capability and the capability of providing for everybody is now coming to where everybody can be included in the game rather than just the few winners. And that's something that's upsetting the basis of our architecture, our thinking, our books, and that kind of thing, you know.
You're
just
absolutely
rambling.
right. I mean, again, it comes down to choices. I mean, we live in a city, okay, New York City, richest nation in the world. Yet how many people go hungry every night?
Yeah.
Okay. What are going to be our principles?
They've been going hungry throughout all of human history.
They have.
They've been dying.
Right, they have.
Dying from hunger, and people are stuffing themselves on gold plates. I mean, that's the history of the world.
And New York is another iteration of that.
It has to be that way. And people are saying, and lecturers saying, well, there's not enough. For us to be able to have, you know, others have to not have.
But again, that's
the myth of scarcity. The myth of scarcity.
Well, yeah, but no,
based
it was
on
real.
a market morality.
Well, it was real. You couldn't. What I'm trying to say is there's progress in terms of material. Let's just be materialistic for a while instead of all of the ethics, and that's a whole other thing, or love and those are things that we're concerned with, obviously. But I mean, just material scarcity. We can now feed we've got enough capability.
There's enough.
And that's bringing a challenge where we're being really tested in a way that I don't want to be profane or anything. Jesus would be proud to say, you can no longer say that you cannot have the justice rain down because you can't make enough food for everybody, so some have to starve. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I think this is Nkosi's point, is that now it's about choice. It's about one's moral convictions and one's moral compass. And this is really a matter of people with power and people with money. Are they willing to give it up?
Well,
and I think that is the project of revolution.
It's beyond that, with all due respect. I think it is. I think it's something beyond that. That's always been there. So you could have the good guy and the bad guy, and the good guys are going to overturn the bad guys, and that kind of thing. That's realpolitik. And remember, they never put the winners in the dock. The winners go in the prison. Or the winners go to the guillotine. I mean, the losers go to the prison, or to the dock, or to the prison, or to the guillotine or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The winners, they never do. But they would have the excuse philosophically or materialistically or realistically. Be real. Whoever's got the gun or got the bigger club can hit the other on the head and be the winner.
Right.
And that's justified because there's not nearly enough. For one to win, the other has to lose, and that's
Well, that's no longer the case.
Laws of the nature of the universe. That's something that could have been, because in a very real sense, there wasn't enough. But we're not. Now we're getting to a point where there is enough and a capability.
Right.
The capability, not the reality. We got institutions all formulated on the assumption of scarcity.
Right.
You understand? But now we don't have that excuse anymore.
And that's my point. In
Not
this current,
intellectually.
in this current historical moment, it's about people who are willing to not willing to give up power, but at the point that people give up power and people give up resources, because there's more than enough. Even the work we do with the with fast food corporations, we know that it's unnecessary for a fast food billionaire to make 200 times what the person makes on the grill. And it's a matter of this, to go back to our socialist sensibilities, a better distribution of wealth, which results in a better distribution of power. And I think that is at the core of what I mean by revolution. It's a complete restructuring and reordering and redistribution of wealth and power in this country, because we know that in this world, because there is enough.
I hear you, but there has no. But the point, ontologically, I'm not even thinking about. I'm talking about ontology, a capability as opposed to the inherited institution.
Right.
The capability we have is qualitatively different than ever we've had in history.
Right.
But the struggle between the haves and the have-nots remains. It's been consistent throughout history.
Yeah, but
so
listen,
that's nothing new.
we've been here all these thousands of years. There's a lot of patterns in place. People have thinking. And people, realpolitik's really strong in politics. You understand?
Exactly.
Because people have learned. But we better win, because if not, we go in the dock. And we get our heads cut off. And we got,
exactly. But I do want to interject, to follow Willie's point. So yes, we need a revolution. But as brothers who come out of
Could it be a revolution that include everybody, maybe, where we haven't had available to us? It's a capability we have that is a saving grace.
Of course, but I think we have
Amazing grace or something at this particular time we've been born into, if you don't understand what I'm saying, men of the cloth.
But we also have to always keep in mind and put front and center power dynamics.
Right.
And so as we're calling for this revolution, we have to always understand that power concedes nothing without a demand.
Well, that's
it never has and never will. That's Frederick Douglass.
I wonder.
And
now
so
wait a minute. Maybe we're down. Yeah, that's true. That's something we live by.
Right.
That's a truism, right? That's an absolute truism. Maybe it is time that doesn't necessarily hold. That it can be a thing. This is going really off the deep end, but maybe it's a time where everybody can win, and including the ecology.
Right, but
we got an ecological thing that we're facing too.
Yeah.
But in order to win,
we're
going to have to we're going to have to reimagine what it means to win. See, in our market-driven society, to win means to have all the money,
have the most,
to be in control, to have the most.
I'm hip.
For everyone to win, we're going to have to radically challenge that to say, hey, we have to look at models of community, models of sustainability, models of sharing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
That's what really
has to be a revolution of values.
Exactly.
A revolution of values.
I didn't mean to get you.
And the revolution of values that really departs, if not and dismantles marketplace mentalities. Because marketplace sensibilities, which is the heartbeat of capitalism, has made it more impossible for everyone to win, because Steve Frazier really talks about this in his new book. He has a book called The Age of Acquiescence, and in his book, The Age of Acquiescence, he talks about in the latter parts of the book of how credit has now become a facade and a mirage for poor people to appear as if they are winning. So now, one
the old
gets
3-card Monty time.
one
You know,
gets
we're gonna,
one
tell you what
gets-
I'm going to do.
keep up with the Joneses.
so now one gets to ape a type of economic accessibility. One gets to perform a type of prosperity, which really creates a system that is tantamount to slavery, and it's called debt.
Right.
Exactly.
There you are. Yeah, right. Okay, good. Listen, I didn't want to get you off on something.
This is all interrelated. It's all interrelated.
It's just my thing, right?
Yeah.
But listen, why don't we got a little clip, okay?
Okay.
We got a clip. We got an 11-minute clip. That night was major. That was a major night, and I think it should be everybody should be getting up and enthusiastic about the 22nd, 23rd, particularly 24th of October this year, 2015.
Yes.
So maybe we can roll that clip now. We're talking with Nkosi and Willie, and here we are. Now they're going to run this tape.
It is a joy.
Yeah, here we go.
Welcome you all to 1 Corinthian Baptist Church. It is always a signal honor when we can open this space to the real moral architects of America. People who are able to see through the smoke and see through the blood and the fire, to see and fight for a world that is feasible, a world where all people are free.
We are in a state of emergency in this country. The history lesson is to say that nothing has changed in terms of state violence and state terror.
This is a veil of terror that generations have been strangled and suffocated with. And this is what began to be dragged into the light when people began to rise up. Starting in Ferguson, when the youth took to the streets and said, no, not this time, we're not going to take it anymore. And then spreading everywhere.
Don't let people tell you we can't do better than this. Don't let anybody tell you that America is eternal and that the best we can hope for is getting some itty-bitty changes in how they dog us here. Don't let them suck you into framing what you're trying to do in the language and the terms of the system. Don't let them tell you that the only way we can do anything is to limit ourselves to the channels that the system puts out there. We've seen this movie before, and it leads to results in the whole genocidal situation we face right now. And yes, I said genocide.
One of the things that God says, according to the traditions, is that he hates brutality against the oppressed. Does that mean that we forgive and sit back and wait? Does it mean that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, therefore we sit back and wait? Does it mean doom is coming? Sit back and wait for doom? No, I think there's only one thing we need to read into what God hates. God hates it. God hates it when people are shaken and refuse to wake up.
I am the mother of a son who has been stopped by police over 30 times. That means my son's life has been threatened over 30 times. He has been terrorized by the police. You see, I am every black mother.
And I'm a human being. While I come from a legacy of freedom fighters, it's a legacy not only that I carry, but that I share with everyone in this room. While I come from a family that is rich and multicultural, I am unapologetically black. I am unapologetically black. I'm unapologetically what? Unapologetically?
This is to symbolically lift up the names and the lives of these beautiful souls that are no longer with us. They're no longer with us because their lives were stolen by police terror and police murder.
Because I want to see what side people are on. Ayana's 7 years old, sleeping. They came in and automatically blew my granddaughter's brains out in front of me. Like I said, I seen the life and light leave out of Ayanna's eyes. I've traveled all the way from Detroit, Michigan to ask everybody, which side are you on?
Is my grandson. He was 19. He's young. He is black. And he is beautiful. And I am here to tell you that they took his life with 7 bullets. He shot him 3 times, dropped his flashlight, picked it up, shot him 3 more times, looked at him, and shot him again. My boy was unarmed, and nothing he did was deserved for that.
My son was killed. I use the word killed, but I really like to say murdered. Whenever you shoot and kill someone who's unarmed, committing no crimes, no threat to anyone, and you shoot and you kill that person, that's murder.
My son's name is Corey Mickens, and he was killed here, right here in Manhattan, March 13, 2007. And he was murdered while he was sitting in a restaurant eating. I'm still on the fight for justice for my son, and I'm not going to give up the struggle or the fight. And I would like everyone here to understand that I'm going to be out here fighting for the justice for all.
Every time I look at a young face, I see my son and think about his demise. Every time I see little boys, I shed a tear because I know that one day they can grow up and be killed, taken from you.
The reason why Rise Up October is so important is because there ain't enough room in this church for all of the names.
We had enough of y'all coming in to our community, destroying families. We had enough of nobody paying attention. All of us sitting here today need to grab another 500 people and let's flood New York on October 22nd, 23rd, and 24th.
We now have a goal, the Stop Mass Incarceration Network, of bringing more than 100 family representatives to New York in October, and we gonna get them here. But we need your help in order to make that happen.
And some people tonight have talked about it stops here. It begins here. It begins here. And there are people across this country who are listening to what we do here today. There are people who are watching what we do. And from this point forward, things have to be different. And I'm going to ask you, as you're thinking about whether you can do $500, what do you tell that 7-year-old? What do you I'm not going to tell you what I told him. What do you tell him? It's going to be all right, baby. It's going to be all right. Just do the right thing. Some of these people sitting in this role taught their children to do the right things, and their children are dead.
This is why we got to be out there on October 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. We will change history. We will inspire thousands, and yes, millions, who are tired of being treated like criminals, tired of seeing cops patrolling their communities like occupying armies. We're going to inspire them and move them to see that they don't have to keep taking this, to see that it's not their fault, and they will stand up and act to stop this. We will rally to their side thousands of people from other sections of society who refuse to stand aside while people are being beat down and murdered for no other reason than the color of their skin. And we're going to open the eyes of those who don't suffer these horrors, challenging them to quit swallowing the lying justifications that the system gives for giving a green light to killer cops, and challenging them to get off the sidelines. Again, which side are you on?
But black people at our best
people but taught the world so much about love. Treated unjustly but taught the world so much about justice. Traumatized but taught the world so much about how to be cool. Black people at our best have been truth tellers, which means we've been cross bearers before we were flag wavers. But how do we do it? It's a spiritual question as well as political one. And I'm going to end on this because, as I said, we don't need long speeches. But for black people, anytime we decide to straighten our backs up, to tell the truth, to bear witness, and be willing to live and die for something bigger than you. Anytime we decide to do that, the powers that be start shaking.
If you're going to be here October 24th, put your hand together. Your school's going to be here. Come on, come on, come on. Come on here. And so it is with that same hand that you clap that I'm going to ask you to reach down deep and do what's necessary to support this movement as you never have supported it before.
5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hell, you talking about? 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 Hell, you talking about?
Okay, that was really good. That's a good summation of the whole thing. It was a major night. I guess you guys remember it real well too, right? Yes, so the thing is, what can we do? You're going to get the word out, and we're looking. Do you have a preview of what's going to happen on? Well, we got the 22nd, 23rd, and then the 24th, a highlight. Do you have any advance notice on what we can expect then? Also, how people can get in touch with you and how we can get people out and excited about this movement. And congratulations. But fill us in a little bit in advance, if you can, about what to expect over the next couple of weeks.
Excellent. So people should check out www.stopmassincarceration.net.
Okay.
Stopmassincarceration.net.
Good idea. Good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Or www.riseupoctober.org.
Okay.
Riseupoctober.org.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the schedule.
Yes, sir.
So, the 22nd is the National Day of Protest against police brutality, repression, and the criminalization of a generation. And this is an annual event that happens in Brooklyn. And so I wanted to first highlight that. Our events for Rise Up October are in support of that effort.
Okay.
So in terms of Rise Up October, on the 22nd, what we're going to have is at 9 a.m. in the morning, and that may be subject to change, we are going to be in Times Square.
Okay.
And we are going to witness, as we say in the church. We are going to have different people, different well-known people, faith leaders, family members of those who have lost loved ones to police violence. We are going to be reading the names of the countless individuals who have died as a result of police violence. So that's going to be
That sounds a lot
Thursday.
like what that sounds a lot what that's like Living Theater used to do.
Right,
you know?
okay,
She just passed. I'm sad.
Right,
to say.
okay,
I'm
right.
really sorry. She was a wonderful. You know.
So we're going to have
Julie
that
and Joy.
form of public
Judith Molina,
Judith Molina, okay, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No. We definitely acknowledge her.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then that Friday, we're going to have nonviolent acts of civil disobedience to follow in the great traditions of protest that we've seen in this country, civil rights movement and so forth. And then on that Saturday, the 24th, we're going to have a number of marches throughout the city. And so a lot of these plans are still in flux, but if you head to those websites, you'll find out detailed information.
One of the good things about these kind of things that are really real is there's a certain kind of little room for some spontaneity and stuff. Don't you think that's important?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
One thing else, isn't the Nation of Islam they're doing a Million Man thing also in October? Is that in the same vein and so forth thing? That's down in Washington, Washington, I guess.
Yes.
Right.
That's Farrakhan and so forth, right?
Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam and a host of other organizations actually.
The March in Washington?
They are commemorating the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March.
Yeah, right. Okay,
and so this march is expected to be much more expansive and inclusive than it was 20 years ago.
Well, they did.
With
they
the inclusion
got over
of
a million. They got over
well,
a million.
I'm not simply talking about numbers. I'm talking about demographic representation.
Okay,
there'll be more sisters represented. They'll have a deeper interfaith commitment. And this year there's also a policy agenda, and that's 10-10-15. And they are calling for some of the same things that Rise Up October is calling for, and that is the end and the abolition of this onslaught, this open season on black and brown bodies.
The whole they ought to call it the whole Megillah thing. Or no, that's an old Lincoln. That means everything. Because it's a lot of interrelated things that are being brought up in this month of October, and they ought to be, and we ought to get behind it, trying our best to let people know.
And what's particularly progressive is they are I don't know how hard they're sticking to it, but they have created space for, and this is the Million Man March with Honorable Farrakhan, who is created space for the LGBTQ voice and for Native voices as well.
Native. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. It's good there to be cross-cultural camaraderie among these people and not get isolated to just one aspect of it. Although one has a temptation, particularly if your people are being particularly egregiously dealt with. You know.
Pan-liberation is important.
I'm an Anglo-Saxon. I'm an Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So I don't have a lot of complaints, historically. Is there a contingent for white Anglo-Saxon Protestant troublemakers to join in the thing?
There's always space for allies. There's always space for allies.
I could think of a couple school teachers when I was young that I had a brief against.
Nobody's interested in isolating allies, but there is a need.
I'm trying to make a joke.
No, I hear you. I'm
not very good at it.
I hear you. But that is a serious question that we haven't dealt with. And what is the role of white allies in the fight for black freedom, in the fight for black and brown freedom?
There's place out there somewhere to where it's something that is going to be, and we got to realize wool's been pulled over many eyes, has it not? And so many promises made that are broken, and all that kind of stuff. You got to be there, and the same old rules apply. They still hit people. They put the wrong people in all of that and said and everything. But there ought to be a place somewhere open in terms of the intellectualizing of everything like that. There ought to be a place that maybe it could be something that can bring in everybody.
Of course.
Now that's something that seems impossible, but it may be just a distant thing that it would get to where it would be something to be realized. And we can do this now, everybody. Now that's something that I know it's a thing that you can pull your wool over your eyes and tree card Monte and all that, you know, and everything. But anyway, you know what I'm saying?
A popular line from our faith tradition is, there's plenty of room at the table, and it's just a matter of knowing your role at the table. And our white allies, white progressives, have a history of co-opting movements.
Think I could join you at the table, man?
Yeah, as long as you are able to. You're welcome at the table. You're welcome at the table.
No fair. I'm not going to stand. If I got to behave myself, it ain't for me. No, I ain't going to do it. But anyway, I'm just making
Yes, sir.
Really, thank you, gentlemen, for everything and for putting the church, the best to Carl and to Cornell and everything and the people putting it together. God knows it's got to be brought up. It ought to be brought up in all quarters, in all churches, and all things. I'd like to see just a whole thing rain down on this planet that is very characteristic of this time. Okay, well then, I think that's it. So thank you. Your pleasure to have the perception of these two young men, sterling representatives of this movement that's there, and Willie Dubois.
Francois.
Perfect timing. Pardon? Perfect. Okay, and
Nkosi Dubois Anderson.
Dubois.
Yes.
Not Dubois.
I say Dubois in honor of W.E.B. Du Bois.
A great person to be in honor of. Yeah, okay. Thank you,